Hey guys, it's your host Vinyl Man Jebb here. Excited to announce the Tommy Oberon Rose episode here. I like how I did that. Enjoy the first song, which is No Stranger. He'll explain later on in the episode what the song was written about and all the details about Oberon Rose. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Jebb and Greencast. It's your host, Vinyl Man Jebb, here with Tommy Oberon of Oberon Rose. Am I correct, right?
That's correct.
Right. Welcome, Tommy. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So when did you start playing music? We'll start with that.
I started when I was very young. I think I started to get interested when I was like really, really young, like eight years old or something. But I started playing. I think I got my first guitar like a year after that. It was like an acoustic guitar that I couldn't play at all, of course. It was like big and stuff and nylon strings and whatnot. So, and then I didn't really get serious about really playing. I mean, I knew I wanted to get serious like at that age, but it didn't really start happening until I was probably about 12 when I got my first electric guitar. So my interest started with, going through my parents' record collection and stuff, Elvis and the Beatles and Beach Boys and stuff like that. It's kind of funny, nobody mentions Elvis anymore, but that was like some of my first introduction to music. And I just, I would freak out over those, early rock and roll songs. So
You gotta learn to eat nothing but a hound dog, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Rocking all the time.
That's definitely one of them, you know, and the Beatles. Like my parents had the Red collection, you know, the
Oh, yeah, the
Red
greatest hits, I think. Yeah.
collection. Yeah,
Yeah.
they weren't really into the psychedelic stuff, so that I got into that later.
Ha, nice.
Um,
And that would explain, you know, because your band has that influence of like the kind of like the mix of everything, and definitely talk about
yeah,
that more too.
so that was really the start of it. But I got into guitar and I played guitar for many years, and then eventually got tired of working with lead singers and decided to learn how to sing myself.
Yeah.
It was basically out of that, you know. It's like, well, I don't really like what he's doing, so
It's like I'm the writer. I want to do it too.
yeah,
So I get it. So rush forward. Did you have any other bands other than Oberon Rose? Was there anything before Oberon Rose, like pre to this band, or?
played in a bunch of different bands that, you know, were just local bands, sort of.
Oh,
Do
okay.
always really doing like original stuff. Oberon Rose is really, it's more of a songwriting partnership than it is a band between me and my partner Rebecca Rose. She writes like 99% of the lyrics. Okay, she's basically the lyricist of the band.
So she's like a Bernie
And
Taupin then, like
yeah,
an Elton
yeah.
John kind of thing going.
And
That's
it's
awesome.
and she's also a co-visionary of the band as well. So um you know, it's really,
That's perfect.
yeah, it's really our project. But I have two other guys that play with me in the live band. So we did a couple of things before this, but it wasn't as, it was more of an embryonic kind of
Yeah,
thing.
this is your main. This is what you would say.
Yeah.
Hey, this is me. You know, this is it.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
really too, because it's like you over time. You know, it's like you have all these things. You expect one thing to work, then things happen, and then you got to pick up and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And it's really
Yeah.
cool. And how was the scene back when you started? And I'm gonna say in CT because I'm from CT as well. And from
I'm actually from New York.
Oh, okay.
I'm
So how was the
actually from
scene
New
there versus here now? I mean, it's really tough, I
York.
think, now for artists as
You
much.
know, I heard legendary stories of how great the music scene was where I grew up
Hmm.
back in the day, you know, so I kind of missed it. You know,
Ah,
it
yeah.
was it was really not much in terms of a scene. You know, I played a lot in New York City, of course, which there's always something going on down there, but
I know
um,
we've had artists on such as like John Soda James, who down in the description is one of our kind of our partner podcasts. Really somebody that's helped me kind of through everything, like learning through podcasts. And he's has his own podcast called Music Survival Guide, and he's from New York area. And he was talking about back then, like the '90s, of like the scene and how much different it is now. So it's always good to ask artists like, how hard was it for you to start, kind of thing, you know?
it's never been easy, really.
Yeah.
It's always been, you know, a challenge. I'll say a scene is just, I mean, it could happen again. It's just really, it's a matter of whether or not people come out to shows, you know. I
And
mean,
that's why like I'm doing a whole series too as well, and to just try to get people like this is what the podcast ideal was to get people involved in music again, because over time the industry has taken over. It's different now than what it used to be. I mean, my dad tells me stories of like the Who coming out, the Beatles coming out, and he was like 8, 9,
yeah,
10 years old, and I'm like, I want that now, of this influx of bands where I can go down to a store and not know what CD to buy or what, you know. I like going to record store, and it's just
yeah,
like over time I think there will be a scene. It's just taking too long.
yeah, yeah. It's really whether or not people, you know, whether or not interest will spring up again for live bands. I mean, there's so many other things for people to do now when, you know, back, you know, in the
Yeah.
90s and before, you know, basically since before the turn of the century, it was kind of, you know, there wasn't that many options. You didn't have movies on demand
Yeah.
and you know, all kinds of other, and you know, I mean, video games are like so big, you know, at this point
Where
that
like you prefer to, people are preferring to, the stores are going to be, I'm going to witness Walmart probably in
yeah,
my lifetime going out of business because of everything now. It's like industry and everything's at the touch of your hand. You can order things online. I mean, there's
yeah,
apps now designed to tune your guitar. And I'm like, this is, it's great. But now the tuner industry, you know, stuff like, it's like so like like it's cool to have everything at the like the recording stuff now. You don't even need really like my iPhone. I recorded my recent single with just my iPhone, and it was nice because I usually try to run regular mics and stuff. I just did it as a demo thing, and I was like, wow, these actually came out good. I was like, jeez, I'm surprised,
wow,
and I
yeah,
was very surprised because I was like, this isn't gonna be that good. but
Yeah.
it's interesting and it's stuff like that. And you have a show coming up, I believe, this Thursday, right? And then you have another one
Yeah. Yep.
next. If you want to talk about those as well, just to get some shine a light
Sure.
on
Yeah.
those.
Um, when does this podcast go out? Tonight?
I'm gonna try to do my best to get it out right as soon as this is done. I'm gonna
Wow.
so it should go out tonight, so I can help you out there.
Okay. Yeah, we have a show this Thursday, the 21st, at the State House with we're playing with the Split Coils and also Dust Hat.
Dust Hat just played with the Flaming Groovies, if I'm not mistaken. I think.
Did they?
I think they did the at the I forget if it was Calf 9 or if it was somewhere else at the Flaming Groovies. It was just Cyril.
Oh.
It was just like a remake thing, and they opened for them. I think it was Dust Hat or somebody else, but they did like a 3-band thing. So it was pretty cool. I saw that.
Cool.
And then
Excellent.
you have the thing with Dean Falcone, right? Coming up.
Yes, I'm singing a couple of songs
Nice.
for the Vomitorium.
Yeah, I sadly can't make it. I did mention I talked to Dean. I'm 20, so I can't go.
Yeah, I see.
And I know I've talked to Shelly before, but my dad's like, just wait till you're 21. I'm like, we'll go next year. We'll meet with you someday. We'll make it. We'll find a way. But it's just, yeah, guys, go out to these shows if you like psych music. I mean, it's like psych pop. Power pop-ish kind of stuff I would describe your music as, but you're welcome to describe your own music as how you feel, of course. So if you want to talk about your albums now, that'd be perfect. We can do both, or the one you sent me. You sent me both, but I only got a chance to listen to Tell Me All About It. So if you want to tell me all about it, you can. You probably get that too much.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of leave it up to other people to label it in terms of a genre. I mean, obviously it's rock, it's rock and roll basically. Yeah. But I just think of it in a general sense. I'm not like against labeling things necessarily. It's just I don't think of it that way.
No, you're making it as like a love. It's just music.
To me, it's just like well, if you have something a song that's guitar driven but has melodic vocals, people are just going to call it power pop,
Yeah, I think that's what started because it's really like based off the Badfinger formula and the Beatles, like post Beatles. Anything that sounds like Badfinger, the Beatles, Big Star, it's like labeled as power pop.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I'll tell you, but
sure.
funny thing about Big Star is that for years I didn't know anything about Big Star, and people would tell me, "Oh, your stuff sounds a little bit like Big Star," and I'd be like, "Really? I never heard Big Star." They'd be assuming I was a Big Star fan, and I really didn't know that much about him until, well, now it's been a few years, but
yeah, we're actually doing it. This is perfect. Friday of this week, we're doing a Big Star episode with Ken and John from Big Star Third, the Posies, etc. So it's a perfect segue into that. For the future.
Yeah, that's actually funny enough. You asked about Dean and stuff.
Yeah,
it's like I met Dean because of he asked me to do to be part of the Big Star tribute show he did last.
Joe Benoit part of that as well, or was that a different thing? That might have been a different thing. I just wonder because we had Joe on the podcast earlier, but I still have to.
I think it was a different thing.
Okay, because they did the Big Star covers too. That's awesome. Oh.
Yeah, it was for I guess a film that came out, or there was some.
Was the pizza one? Was it the pizza Sally's a Pizza thing? Because I know he does a bunch of film soundtracks.
It was related. It was a Big Star thing. There was something with Big Star.
Was it Thank You Friends and Lovers or something like that? I don't know. That's pretty cool though.
I don't remember.
I'm guessing.
I don't remember, but because I was just asked to do the show, awesome. and I sort of through somebody else, Dean, and I kind of knew we didn't know each other, but we sent a couple of messages to each other through Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook's great for that.
And then this was the opportunity to meet up and stuff and
awesome.
Do that.
So and look at that, and then just happen a kid that just wants to do a podcast. Like, hey, you want to come on? Like, I really know you guys. I look. The secret of my podcast is anybody that has a recording can come on and talk. We have to take it in time because we don't want to be flooded. So many days in a month or a year, I should say, in my lifetime. But it's just something to get artists from local level to bigger name to shine a light on their music because I make music myself, and if I had an opportunity like this, I like to give back. So with having those opportunities that I had, even though I'm not anything yet, you never know. So you never know who can team up with. So it's really cool.
so yeah, I mean the album came out April of 2018.
Oh, perfect. And we played No Stranger for you guys. That was the song you heard coming in. That is the second track on the album, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Perfect. So,
And we did a video for that.
and the video, it looks kind of reminded me of Jet, the band Jet. They're kind of like, I don't know if "Be My Girl" was the song. I think it reminded me of like something like that. The pacing. So if anybody knows Jet, that's what I'm reminded of on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's cool. That's
yeah.
cool. I've heard that before. Someone said that.
Yeah, it's. I'll send you the song afterwards just to show you the video, so you'll be like, "Oh, okay, I see it," or you might be like, "What are you saying?" Everybody's interpretation.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, that was a fun video to do.
That's awesome.
And I think it came out pretty cool.
I'll link the video down so you guys can watch it as well down in the description of the video. We might be moving platforms by the time this will be out tonight, so it'll be on YouTube. YouTube's going through some major changes right now that we might not even have our podcast really focused on YouTube and on a thing called Anchor.fm. So that one I'll explain more. We'll try to get links out if people just follow our Facebook page. The links will be all on there. So all your stuff, Tommy, will be up there as well.
Okay.
Get you up there for it. So yeah, you're welcome to. What was the inspirations behind the album? How much studio time was spent? Stuff like that. If you want to talk about, tell me all about it.
So the album, well, it started. We started working on it, really. The idea of starting to work on it was like probably in 2015, but then I think I recorded a couple of tracks with my drummer at the time, but then we got a bass player, and we kind of put the recording on hold for a little while, and decided to play as many shows as possible and get good as a band and stuff. So it didn't really start to come into. We kind of put it aside for a couple of years, and then I worked on it a little bit as time went on, writing songs and stuff like that, and got everything else together, and we started playing the songs as a band, and then basically in 2017 we started to really focus on doing getting the rest of the songs recorded, and so it was just some of the songs were around for a little while. I mean, the riff for No Stranger I wrote when we were doing Woonjo, but it was
is
just
even earlier, which is like 2012, I believe, was the release for that.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the first album for you guys? Or
Yes.
You guys have okay.
Yes.
That's the debut. That's awesome.
Yeah. So so it was sometimes I just write a riff and record it and forget about it, and then I'll go and visit it and be like, oh wow, I like that, and so I get to hear it from a different, it's like I'm hearing something from somebody else at that point.
But
so,
even though it's you, it's like later on, and I could see that because I know similar with me and writing music and
because I forget about it.
You'll forget, and then you come back. It's like, oh, did I write that? Wait a second.
So it gives me a fresh perspective on it. But so yeah, that No Stranger and Lonely Ghost were actually the first two songs really written.
Lonely Ghost, it reminds me of like Life in a Box and Lonely Ghost. Both are like two of the middle, like my other favorites, and I really enjoy those. And Lonely Ghost just had that feeling of just like it, like that being with the crowd, but being in the out crowd. Like not really always being there, but similarly not. So I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, so those two songs were written first. They were the first two songs really written and demoed for the album, and then Life in a Box was actually one of the last songs written for the album. It might have been the last song written.
And that one, if I were to describe a feel for that, just to throw out another coin in the well here of feels, that one to me was like Oasis era. But I think I mentioned Klaatu to you. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
I have heard of them.
It had like a very much of the first album, like Sub Rosa Speedway kind of feel to it, which is amazing. And a lot of people like, I didn't know if you knew Klaatu, because Klaatu was like blamed as being the Beatles after the Beatles like kind of split. And they had no credits on their albums, and it was like a really cool conspiracy. But I love their sound.
Everyone thought they might be the Beatles, and then the record company stayed silent about it just to let that gestate. And then when everyone found out it wasn't the Beatles, they were like shunned from the.
And then their album sales went, and I want to, but now they're so rare to find that when I go to record shops, they're like 25, almost $40. And
Mhm.
I have the first four. I need the last one. They're all story albums, and they're
How
just a
many albums did they
continuation.
make?
I think they have five, if I'm not mistaken. They have the first one. The second one is like a triangle. It's like a pyramid cover. I forget I have them all on my records shelf somewhere, but I'm missing the last two. Endangered Species is one of the ones I'm missing, and then another one which was later, like way later, and they kind of just had their thing, and then it just disappeared. Then they had a couple others, but they're like greatest hits of their stuff, which
Yeah, yeah,
I like the term greatest hits. You don't have to be great to have greatest hits.
yeah.
And they're great. Like, don't get me wrong, but they weren't known, after. And I meant by that, I don't mean that they weren't good. I love them.
Greatest
But
would be.
greatest would be hits. There we go. And that's like Big Star in the beginning. They're the best band that never was.
Yeah, I almost feel like they jinxed themselves by
But yeah.
naming it #1 album.
Yeah, and literally though you go back, and that is like really cool that their first album, like every hit is on there, and it's like, oh my god, because like I'm doing September Girls for that show that I invited you to come see. We're playing at a bar, and we're doing a couple covers, and I started showing my bandmate who's in his 50s. Sorry, Barry, I just older than you are. Shout out to Barry for misaging him. But anyway, we had like a thing, and we're doing September Girls. I'm doing it solo acoustic, and then he's doing a song after. I'm doing a medley of In the Street, September Girls, In the Street, and then Cheap Tricks, Surrender. So
Love it.
you're gonna do a cool thing for that, and that's what I feel like Dean's. That's why I would love to go, but I'll have to wait till next year. It'd make it more exciting. So that'd be cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Jim's they're all everybody that I see on the list, like every single name on there. I'm like, I have them all added on Facebook. This would be insane.
Yeah.
Like all those guys, like I don't know them. They were suggested, then I add them, and I listen to their music, and I'm like, this is awesome. And it's the same with finding you. It was like, oh, I see that. I thought you were at Ken's show last year when I went to go see him. There was a guy that looked like you. And I thought it was you. And then the guy was like, no, but I know who that is. And I was like, nice. It must have been another musician in the scene. I don't remember his name, but it was fun. It was up at the Gates, I think, restaurant. So it was cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's just a cool
Is
scene.
that how you found out about us? Through Facebook?
Through Facebook just suggested of friends. Like, when like you add somebody, then you have the suggestions. So like I've been adding a lot of musicians. This is my secret. And if they add me back, that's great. If they don't, then I have to be careful, because if you add too many people at once, you get the Facebook jail thing, where they like lock you out of your, because they think you're spamming, which is fine, which I understand that. So that's how I found a bunch of musicians, and then I would listen to their music, and then would message them like, hey, it'd be an awesome honor to have you on, and talk about your music. And that's just how I kind of kept it going. And now, because of links, like Matt Harris knowing a bunch of people has led us to now kind of get more traction. Like we might have one of the Butthole Surfers on in the future, which is insane. Wow. And then I know Ween is going to be playing at College Street in like February, and I'd really love to get an interview on them, but I know that like that's like impossible, but nothing's impossible, like I'd love to get REM on here too, like at least get like Mike Mills, because he's part of the Big Star Third thing and all that. So links to links to links kind of thing. It's a lot of fun.
That's the way it works, man.
And I like having the style that I do is more of a conversation style of like, hey, it's like us sitting down at a table and just talking music.
Sure.
And I feel like the artist is something different. I'm not looking for a scoop. I'm not, it's something different. It's something that an artist can come on and just enjoy, and for half an hour to an hour and just talk their music, and it's really fun.
To me, that's what a podcast is. It's not really an.
It's like technically you're a co-host right now, kind of thing, and it's really. I think that's how it should be. People do what they want. Like I kind of like started watching Joe Rogan for that reason, just see kind of what he does, but I can't do 3-hour podcasts at the moment. So many, like that's a tough one for both me and then both probably the guests too. They're like, I don't want to go 3 hours. Like I understand.
3 hours would be tough. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we could just talk about Tesla and sending David Bowie songs into space. I love it. But and I think we're gonna end the podcast right. You said Drowned and Quartered, right? So if you want to talk about that one, or Drawn and Quartered, I apologize.
Drawn and Quartered, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one we usually end the set with that song a lot.
Oh, perfect. So ending the podcast is perfect.
Yeah. So I just thought it would be appropriate.
Awesome.
It's a fun song. It's really, the lyrics are kind of fun, and everyone seems to like the riff and the main riff in the song. When we play it live, everyone's always like, "Man, that's a killer riff."
There you go. The guy coming up like, "What's the riff, man?"
Yeah,
the riff, man.
Yeah. And it's like I said, it's a fun song. It's upbeat, and it's catchy.
Yeah, that's it's fun to like listen because Psych has gone through so many. Like I like that this is like more of like to me is like the bubblegum Psych of like the '60s. So it's like more of like the mainstream Psych, and versus kind of like the garage, but it's also garage too. Like you guys like No Stranger is a perfect upbeat like into it tune, which I love, and that's
Mhm.
totally. I'm glad that you picked that one. Like, it's perfect for you guys. This like to me, that's like that's your single hit. Like
Mhm.
for like a single, not the only hit. Please make more hits.
Mhm. Yeah.
But like to me, that's like the one that could be like, oh, I know them because of No Stranger. I saw it, and I
Sure.
shared it to a bunch of my friends that love like really into Psych, like the stoner Psych, all that stuff. And I
Yeah.
shared it to one of my friends, and he goes, "This is actually really good." And he's very picky, so it
Yeah.
was cool. And he's from CT too, so like we're trying to team up and hopefully like try to find a way. But it's tough with the scheduling this week. But
Mhm.
that's why I asked next year. My dad's big into Psych too, so he's a
Yeah.
Flaming Groovies fan, stuff like that.
Okay.
And like we all got into, I got into Psych a little bit later, thanks to Pink Floyd, original
Yeah.
stuff like the first with Sid Barrett. I am big
Yeah.
into now, which I wasn't
Me
was
too.
before. I love that first album, Pipers at the Gates of Dawn, just proves what you can do with Psych and how extreme it could be. And it's so cool with the sound effects and how nuts Sid Barrett was. But that's a whole nother
Yeah.
episode in the making if we were to go and do Pink Floyd. I
Yeah.
would
No, I
love to
mean,
talk that. We could have you on again talking Pink Floyd. That'd be awesome.
yeah, I could definitely do a whole hour on Pink Floyd.
That'd be
I
awesome.
mean, Pink Floyd. I would say really for me, like the Beatles and Pink Floyd are probably two biggest
That's awesome.
influences on me, and that includes all, or maybe I shouldn't say all eras of Pink Floyd, but I would say everything from Piper up until The Wall.
What is your thought on the final cut? Or the final cut, is that the one? That's always debated.
Yeah. Well, you see, the thing is like I pretty much like everything up to The Wall, everything
Yeah.
from Piper to The Wall, and then I then I like Division Bell, and that's it.
And Division Bell was because Gilmore kind of was back in, and I think I'm the same way. I like The Wall, but The Wall to me is too mainstream. I did not like I couldn't even get through the
Well,
film.
it's it's too much.
Waters.
It's been played out over
Oh, yeah.
FM radio too much at this point, so it's
definitely.
hard to listen to it.
Well,
Kind of
it's
same.
like whatchamacallit, the Dark Side of the Moon, where I still love Dark Side a ton, but I can listen to the whole songs on all the radio in order. Like they do it too much, and it's that and Led Zeppelin too. And I'm a huge Zeppelin head, but it's at the same time it's like I'm tired of listening to them because I'm just over. I'd rather go listen to the underground stuff and new artists coming up that have the same sound. And like even Greta Van Fleet to me, the band that's supposedly the next Zeppelin, I'm like, you know what? That's just insulting bands that have already tried. Like, because there's so many other bands that have done really hard work underground, no one knows, and that they've been making the sounds of Led Zeppelin the same way, and it's like, oh, jeez.
I think I heard someone else say on another podcast that every decade there's, at least one band that is trying to do Led Zeppelin.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny because it's like, and then Robert Plant is like over there in his old age, like, yeah, I like them. Like, were you paid to say that, or like, do you truly mean it? Like, hold up, was this a paid?
I mean, look, who doesn't love Led Zeppelin?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're a rock fan, you kind of have to.
Ubiquitous,
Yeah,
so we all try to bite. I mean, I bite in small. I take small bites.
I'll send you some of my early stuff just for funs. My early band, the Sane Riot, before we became a duo, we'd be going through a lot of changes, and we're Whoing. Like I'm a Who fan, like to the max degree. I'm wearing a Tommy shirt that night that I just bought for that reason. I buy new shirts. Like I have this little ritual when I get a gig, and this is our first ever paid gig. So to me, it was like I'm buying a Tommy shirt, and I'm doing a little Tommy reference at the end of the show, and I'm doing a little, see me, feel me, touch me, heal me. A little reference from Christmas, but it's just I'm a huge Who fan, so a lot of our music, like I did a song called How Does She Think She Does It, and it's Who, like, so I get it, I get the like having the like influence of a band. And then there's like bands like Oranger where they literally have an album, which I just found out from Matt, their second album is called A Quiet Vibration Land, and I'm like, now that's awesome. Because and then their first song is called Sorry Paul because it rips off one of the licks from Abbey Road, and I was like, nice. I love it. No, that's raw references, and I love that. So I get it.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah, that's cool, man. So what else?
If you wanted to go over your first album as well with the band, more than welcome to. Again, I haven't heard it yet, so this is all for you.
So the first album is different in the sense that was written before I had a band. So
cool.
It was more. It's a little more. It's a little more I guess, psych folk in a way.
Does Wunjo actually have a meaning?
It's pronounced Wunjo.
Wunjo. Okay.
Wunjo is the name of a rune, Rune,
Ah.
that that those Viking runes, which were kind of like used
Oh, I'm
for.
into and that's like a Zeppelin-y thing. They were always in the Norse
Yeah,
mythology.
yeah, yeah.
Love it.
So it's like a little thing that they use for divination, and there's I think
Ah.
20 something. I forget how many there are, but there's like maybe 24 of different symbols that they use. And so Wunjo was one of them, and it's the one it symbolizes the journey from uh, like the darkness to the light.
Ah.
So yeah, it's really
And
kind
I
of
just pulled up. Again, I haven't heard the song yet. I was just pulling up lyrics online here, and I see that you have like the "To lose yourself, loneliness feels good" in the lyrics for that one, the song there, the title
well
song.
see well
So
see
like,
what's interesting about that title song is that I wrote that was probably one of the first songs I ever written,
oh
okay, in my
wow,
life.
oh wow.
And so and it was different in a
Hmm.
sense. It was like the progression of changes in the song was totally different. And it had a different title. It was called, because the lyric is, it's so hard, you know
Yeah,
and and so that was the title, you know and but the thing
makes
is,
sense.
when I was working on the song and revisioning it for the Wunjo album, I was having a hard time figuring it out. And so I realized at one point, I was like, you know what, let me just scrap that title, because the title is saying it's so hard, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, maybe that's just like, maybe if I just get rid of that title, it'll open up to me, and it'll kind of speak to me, and show me.
Because I think a title does kind of limit you.
Yeah,
And as a music writer myself, and more of a free verser, so I enjoy free verse a lot more than writing. And I actually, that song I sent you, the first song, a lot of people that I've sent it to, like a couple of people have said, like, "Is this written?" And I'm like, "No." I said, I don't write as much because writing kind of constricts what I do. But then when I write a song, and I'm like, "Why is this?" And they're all like cheesy, so I understand that. And then taking the title away, I've experienced similar things. Like you go, "Oh, wait a second," now the song, so I get that,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And so then it just, once I got rid of it and was like, made it like untitled,
There you go.
then it came to me how to present the song, and like how to, because the way it used to be, it would be like a verse, and then like there, like you'll see when you listen
Yeah,
to it.
definitely. I'll be listening to it as soon as I'll download it as soon as I get out here from
Yeah,
it.
there's a whole vocal thing that goes on with like ahs and stuff like
Ooh,
that. And so
ooh,
like, yeah, and
yeah.
so it would kind of do a verse and go into that for a long time, and then go back into a verse, and then go back into that. It kind of did this thing, but it finally came to me where it was like, oh, I could do it in almost a more circular fashion, where it kind of does. It has an intro, and then it goes into a verse, and then it goes into that part, and then it goes into a verse, and then it goes to an outro. It's like almost like
Yeah.
a circular kind of thing. And then when I was done with it, I decided to name it Wunjo, just because it kind of,
Why not?
it just worked, with what Wunjo means, and also it kind of became like almost like it's one of the arcs on the album. It's kind of like a special moment on the album. So um,
And
that yeah,
it gives back to what you've been doing as an artist as that first song, and it shows it's like
yeah,
here's the progression, and there's like I love that in music, hearing like and then knowing the story, like you only know, most people only know the story behind the, oh, I just heard the album, hey, it's really good. And then there's people like me that are like big into music, that I want to know the depths. I want to know like
sure,
the history behind it. So that just made me excited to like know, so definitely want to listen to this. This is more than a no doubt here. But
yeah,
this is
yeah.
awesome. I see you have a
So
cassette version of this. I am excited to
uh,
mention.
I,
Oh, that's awesome.
well, it's just a cassette version of "Tell Me All About It."
Yeah. Oh, this is for Tell Me All About It. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now, is Thou Art Records your own thing, or is that a like
Yes.
actual? Oh, that's even cooler. DIY over
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. It's our own thing,
Ah,
and
that's cool.
we
I'm
basically do
same way
everything.
here. Yeah, I go under. I was under Still River with my family friend, but I kind of just broke away since I'm kind of managing a band at the moment. So I'm kind of like don't want to be under that if case they need something and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of just do, I release under Jebb, but I like that to have a different name. And then because when people are like, oh, this is then if record companies want to contact you, they go, oh wait, they're on a label. I have to contact a label, even though it's you. And it's like that's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah. Well, you got to call it something.
Oh, of course.
And at this point, I'm still trying to figure out what indie labels do for you. I mean,
I think they just do the same thing, right? Like if you can do it all yourself, right?
I mean,
why do you need to hire someone to do the exact same thing? Like your recordings sound like they were. Did you guys do studio times too, or how did you guys record?
So both albums were recorded by me.
That is incredible.
So they were recorded by me in my home studio.
Oh, there you go, perfect.
And then they were mixed. Both of those albums were mixed by. Are you familiar with the Gripweeds at all?
No, I'll definitely check them out now.
You should check them out. They're another band you could interview, by the way.
Oh, cool, perfect. Yeah, definitely. If you let them know that I had this, that'd be awesome.
I will. Kurt Ryle is he's the drummer and lead singer of the Gripweeds, but he also has like a really nice. At this point, it's a hybrid studio of both. He's got both full analog capacity and full digital
that's
capacity.
A dream.
So yeah,
he's my PA speakers plugged into Audacity.
He's in New Jersey, and so I mixed both albums with him.
Oh, that's really cool.
There, because I think it's good to get some fresh.
Tyler of the Jebb and Green cast, Tyler Green has his own mixing. He's just happened to, with everything going on, he's got the mixing that he does. He's actually gonna be doing drums on a couple of my albums and mixing them. And I'm like, this is awesome because it is good. Like you were saying there, it's like good to have a different, like somebody else look at it and kind of have like, oh, this is cool, and then have their mix because they're giving somebody else a chance to kind of shine too. And I always like sharing, like in with everybody because then when you go to do the thank you, your thank you page could be long, it's like thank everyone.
Yeah, and so we basically mixed it based on my rough mixes because like cool. I do come up with like moves that I want to happen, like maybe like some effects or whatever that I want.
Kind of like Tell Me About It, the first song where it kind of goes into that midsection where it's a whole different song for a sec, and then it for a couple minutes, and then comes back. Yeah. And you have that psychedelic kind of reverse effect in there, and I like that a lot.
Yeah. So Tell Me All About It. That's an interesting. That song itself has a little interesting story too, because that was actually a song that was from one of the earlier projects that Rebecca and I were doing together before we just came up with the whole concept for Oberon Rose, and we just kind of revamped it for the album, and I thought that it was just going to be, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 songs in, maybe the 5th song on the album. And after we had the mixes done and I was trying to settle on a track order, I wanted to originally open the album with Life in a Box, kind of more like a Badfinger approach, or
all right, yeah, I can see that.
With a mellower tune, and you kind of build it as you go along.
Because that's definitely more of like, I saw the Badfinger in that song too, because I'm a huge Badfinger fan. So
and so that's kind of what I was thinking. But then I was talking to Kurt, who helped me mix the record, and he was like, "Yeah, you should open with Tell Me All About It."
And I sensed that too, like it wasn't the original plan, because I could hear the albums like that could have fit somewhere like in the middle, like
I thought, no way, man, that's not a lead.
Yeah, that's not like it's more of an intro, if anything,
Yeah,
like
and he was like, no, I'm telling you, just try it, put it first and listen to it, see if
it sounds real good too.
And I was like, when I was resistant to it, but I was like, you know what, I'll do it.
I'm glad you did, because
I know it's wrong.
I know it's wrong.
I know it's wrong, but I'll do it.
I'll do it.
And I did it, and I was like, oh wow, this makes total sense now. Like everything just kind of fell into place at that point. It's really strange. I just couldn't see it for some reason. I was so close to the stuff, and had my own.
I think it's like your emotions are on the songs, and
Yeah,
you don't
like
like you. This is me, like I don't want this guy to tell me, like, and then it's like, but then all of a sudden
well,
you're
it's
like,
not so much that it was more like I just I created my own
oh,
ideas
okay, that makes sense.
already about what each song is. I couldn't hear it from like
Oh,
like
yeah.
a different perspective. I kind of put already had it in my head where that song should be. It was like
Well, it's like when I release something and my friend goes, you should put it that. I'm like, no, it's already out. It's already out. You
yeah.
can't fix it now. But then in the end,
So
I go to listen to what he wanted, and it's like same story. It's like, okay,
yeah,
I see it.
and so it was a great it was a great suggestion
That's
that worked
awesome.
very
Yeah.
well, and it is better to have Life in the Box a little bit, a couple of tracks.
And you
And
know what?
it's
It's like and it introduces the like kind of like if it was on a record, could have been like the end of the first side, like introduce to the second side kind of thing. That kind of putting it
could
there,
be.
depending on timing, it would be more of a small because it's only like 37 minutes, I think, for the tell me all about it. So it would be like more of a shorter, thing. But it's just really cool that like it kind of opens like another because I started hearing that I'm like, is this the same band? And I'm listening to the thing and I'm like, this is
Yeah.
cool. This is really cool. Because then again, I heard the Badfinger right away because like, and that's where like you said earlier with the power pop thing, you'd start doing Badfinger or Big Star and you're labeled power pop. So
Yeah.
it's cool. Hey, you know what? I think that's the best genre out there to be honest. That and classic rock are my thing. So hey, there's no shame in power pop.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have a problem with it.
There you go.
And yeah. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say something else, but
If you guys want to keep up to date with Oberon Rose and Tommy himself, you can head on over to oberonrose.com. I believe that's the website, correct? And
yep.
mention all the news is on there and everything. And then again, I don't know. Again, there's a link in the description if this is on YouTube. We're still like it should be because I'm gonna post it tonight, but we're in the midst of like moving things over to another service just because we want to make sure that it's on everything like Spotify, iTunes, more viewers. So it'd be great.
Cool.
So and then again, having your two songs in there, they can hear the songs ahead of time. And I think KEXP in Seattle does a similar thing where they post like the songs and then have like the artist on. So I wanted to kind of not mimic, like we do it differently, but just inspired by that idea because it gives the artist, the people going to the podcast, they click on it and they might not know who you are. I mean, most likely they're not going to. But then there's like friends and family that do, of course. And it's nice to hear a song and go, I think I know this person. Let me hear the rest of the interview. And I think it adds a nice feel to it. So I enjoy that.
Yeah.
But yeah, oberonrose.com, guys. You can check out all their stuff and you can go buy some of their music. And you should do that. You should definitely do that. Like, I'm not telling you what to do, but you should. Well, we can continue going. As long as you got enough more time, I don't mind.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
what do you want to talk about? No, I think I got some more questions. So Badfinger. You know what? Mention Badfinger. So are you a big fan of Badfinger or?
I am, and
Perfect.
we had the great opportunity last year to open for the current version of Badfinger.
Was the Dean part of that too?
Dean filled in on bass
Oh,
for
nice.
that show.
Because I saw that and I was like, because it's Joey's band now, right? It's
Yeah.
Mulholland's, or
Joey,
yeah,
Joey Mullins band.
Mullins, yeah.
Yeah, I had the great opportunity to meet Joey
Oh,
too.
that's awesome.
There's a picture of us together on
I'll
Facebook.
have to check that out. I'm definitely gonna check that out. That's awesome.
That was great. And my bass player was just out of town for that show, and I was scrambling to find. I think it was
Dean.
because we inquired about it like 2 months or something before before the show, like right when they kind of booked in. I talked to somebody who works at the Pate, and she was like, "Yeah, I'll try to get you on there."
That's awesome.
And it wasn't until like 2 weeks before the show, I was just like, dude, I was telling my bass player, "Hey man, don't worry about it. I haven't heard anything. We probably didn't get the show." And it was like,
because you don't know,
yeah, 2 weeks before the show, they're like, "Okay, we'll have you on the show."
And you're like, well, I don't want to deny this. Like, this is an incredible experience. And I think anybody who's
I
played.
don't have a bass player now.
Oh, jeez.
So I called Dean, and he was up for it. And
that's awesome.
We did a couple of rehearsals,
and did you guys got to meet Joey? It's incredible. And it's just like I'm trying to get the book. The book is like $500. The tragic history of Badfinger, not Big Star.
Was it out of print?
It's out of print. Yeah, my uncle has a sealed copy with the CD still, and that goes for a lot. And my uncle calls me, and he's like, "I have that," and I'm like, "That's nice." He's a big avid. Actually, he's the one that got us into the Posies. My dad first, of course, back in the day, and he actually met them way back, so it was kind of cool. And then from then on, he always sends us the music stuff. So I'll be sending him your stuff definitely because he's into that kind of stuff. He lives in Texas, so he gets to get all the way out to Texas there for you.
Nice.
But it's just a cool thing, and again with Badfinger, I have a bunch of boots that I have found, and just people showing me and stuff. And there's some times like I love Suitcase, the song Suitcase. When they bring it out and draw it out for like 20 minutes, I'm very pleased.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, Pete Ham, his vocals and all that stuff, and it's just I could do a
And he's
whole
such a
episode
great-
on Badfinger too. So
He was such a great guitar player too. I mean,
rest in peace.
I believe that's him at the end of the song "Timeless."
I think so.
Yeah, because that's just a wonderful moment of guitar.
I love
off
magical the Christian the Magic Christian music there. All my titles are misjumbled at night here. It's you see me different on a night podcast. My mind's all over the like. I put the titles before they're supposed to be, all that stuff. But it was the Magic Christian movie with Ringo. It was like the soundtrack was Badfinger, and I think there's one song, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. I'm actually gonna type it into my iTunes, so bear with me, podcast listeners. I am actually typing this as we speak. This isn't post edit. This is as we speak. It's live but in studio, if that makes sense. It's not live streamed, it's recorded. I believe it's on a first, but it's a long one, and I really like it, and it's got a good like mellow feel to it. It's on the second side of the album. See, I know the album like by heart, like the size, but I can't remember the song name.
I think I know.
On Google. It's got that slow feel, and then it has that progressive feel, and then it just hits, and then it goes back. And I can't remember the song, and I'm probably not helping by like songs that have progressive. Oh, Carry On Till Tomorrow.
Yeah, that's the one I thought you were talking.
Yeah, Carry On. As soon as I put it into Google, it was the first thing that popped up. So definitely, Tommy, if you're interested, we can have another episode. Well, so the goal of this podcast is to have an artist come on, talk their own music, then come on again with a panel of guests. So like 2 others, like this John and Ken thing is the example of what we're doing. Is have them talk other bands. Now it just happens that they're in the Big Star Third, so it kind of makes sense. But I would have another. I can have another Big Star episode and have like you on or something. But the Badfinger one would be great because we haven't had anybody planned for that. I'll put you down if you wanted to do that. That'd be awesome. Have you on talk Badfinger. We can talk albums and. I definitely know
Badfinger more than Big Star.
We'll put you down. I'll put you down for Badfinger. I'll put you on the list. Because what I like to do is just have like you, and it gives you an opportunity to meet other artists too that'll be on. I don't know. It could be. You never know. It could be like another big name. Who knows? It could be, and that could always be a lead-in for you as well. And I try to give. I'm a nobody. I'm a nobody around somebodies. That's what I like to call myself. And I like to express that the podcast. It's an honor to have you guys come on, no matter what, because you're taking time out of your day to say, "Hey, I'm giving this kid a chance to talk to," And it's just cool to have an episode where you and other guests can be on, and whole panel just having a fun time talking Badfinger or whatever. Beatles is mainstream, so I don't really want everybody's covered that. But of course, we could do Revolver. Revolver's my favorite album, so the psych stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Beatles have been talked about like endlessly. So I mean,
but a lot of these people later on, like his. You got to go online and be like, what podcast has not been done about the Beatles? They have the anthology movie where it's like 8 DVDs long, and it's probably a month's worth of footage, video. It's long. It's great. It has in depth about the beginning and all the way to the end, and it's a must buy if you're a Beatles fan to just see the whole thing. Diehard Beatles fan, I should say. I mean, I'm a big fan of Monty Python stuff too, so I've been getting into them, like the Bonzo Dog Band and stuff like that. So I got to find people that are interested in that, and just like have an episode where like. Hey, like for example, Frank Zappa's sister, like Badfinger, have her on talk Badfinger, with you, and so that's a good example, just to see if we can but the timing and all that too. So,
sure.
And then I'm doing a series now on the fore and aft stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with the Fore and Aft bar. It was in New York. I'm again too young to drink, but know all the history from my dad, and been lucky enough to meet with some of those artists, and I'm trying to shine a light on them as well. So it's just a lot of fun. And cool. we just had a really cool podcast. Our last episode, shout out to John Verity from Argent, was on, and it was an insane experience to talk to a blues master of his time and all the guys he's worked with. And again, Argent inspired a ton of bands, and it was just really cool to. I didn't even get to ask about the zombies because I know they worked with the Argent had some members of the zombies, but
Yeah.
so many questions. You're like, wait.
Yeah.
But he sent me a bunch of his music, and I was able to share some of my songs. And he said one of my songs took him right back to the '70s, and I was like, now that's an honor.
Nice.
And I asked him if he wanted to work on an album. The same one I asked you, and I asked a couple other people too, just to see it timing wise, just to get some guests.
Nice.
But it's cool. And so, is there any last things for you? This is your podcast. I'm over here just it's just such an amazement.
Do you have any other questions? I mean,
So go back to what do you think? We talked about a bunch of bands. So you said Beatles and the Pink Floyd probably be like the biggest influence for you, or was there one band in particular that got you into the psych feel? And kind of would you say would describe your band, other than original style, but like have like a big influence on Oberon Rose in a whole?
Well, see, like the whole psych thing,
Mm-hmm.
this is one of the things I wanted to kind of get into a little bit earlier. That I was like, what did I want to get into? This is one of those things.
Okay, perfect.
So like for us, like the psych thing is, we take a different approach than what a lot of modern psych bands do these days. A lot of the psych stuff these days are like, they're just kind of like songs with a ton of reverb on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you
And
just take the amp and just put it to 10.
Yeah.
You go to 11 on that.
And fuzz pedal and reverb.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
that's like modern psych. I'm not putting it down. Like there's
No.
some people do that really well. But that's not what we do. Like kind of like how you were saying, we do some of like the bubblegum psych stuff. You know what I mean?
Like the
And that's
Beatles
really
and
what I like.
Badfinger or stuff like that. Yeah.
Funny, I like as corny as it may be, I do like a little bit of bubblegum in the music. Just
Ohio
a little
Express.
bit, a little taste.
Yeah, the Kinks were bubblegum, to be honest, before they got really raw. Yeah. So I get it.
Yeah, I don't know. I like that aspect to,
Oh,
there's a certain thing about it that I like. But for us, the psych is really it's kind of inherent in the lyrics that Rebecca writes. So like the way she writes lyrics are in a very non-linear.
And I really look up to that too, because here you are, you're taking lyrics, right? And you can have a guitar riff in mind, kind of like Elton John to Bernie, and have that kind of thing where it's like you could take those lyrics and actually make a song from that. It's a lot harder than just sitting there. Like, I mean, both ways are hard. Like, I know it's hard for me to make music too, but both ways. But that is more challenging, I think, in my mind, to be able to take someone else's like written word and actually make it work with a melody without you being the one that wrote it. And I applaud that. That is amazing. That is
well,
really cool.
It's usually the music and the melodies are written.
Oh, okay. But still,
then,
that's still for her to write to that is incredible too.
Yeah.
So shout out to her.
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome.
And it's like, so a lot of the psych for us is we try to make it inherent in the lyrics as well as in some of the musical decisions that are made. You know what I mean? So it's not about delays or reverbs and stuff to us that makes
it's about you.
It's about the thing as a whole, because it's kind of like, if you listen to the Doors, really everything about it is psychedelic, right? I mean, it's like,
oh yeah, without a doubt. And the fact that Morrison was not even a singer to begin with, like he used to writer.
But if Morrison just wrote your standard lyrics, you wouldn't, I mean, you'd think of it as psychedelic in a way just because of the time period, but it wouldn't be as psychedelic. His lyrics really that's what really put it over the top,
because he's talking about things that only back then happened. Like there's stuff happening now that's like, history loves to repeat itself constantly, but at the same time, like, the way he describes certain things and the way that it and also then having the melodies and stuff behind it is definitely psych, with no doubt. But then you have like because psych is also overused, the label, in my opinion too. Like every label's overused. I mean, like there's times where like you listen to something and they say it's psychedelic and I was like, no, it's not. Like I mean, that's my opinion, but like I don't think it is. Like this stuff, like to me, is like the bubble. Like it's got a '60s feel. You got the clothing. It's kind of like you would wear the clothing. The music kind of makes you wear the clothing, if that makes sense. Like, kind of like it makes you live that time, and that's what I. But the funny thing is, what you said earlier actually hits a little bit in my head too. A little bit was when you said like I let other people decide the kind of like tell me what they think for the label and stuff. Is because if I when I tried to be a psych band with one of my bands, we couldn't do it because we were trying too hard to be something that we clearly weren't.
Exactly right. Yeah.
So I just left my music to be what it is, and I was actually even gonna, when I sent you my single earlier, I was gonna over describe it and be like, oh, this is just what I do on my, you know what, this is me though. I'm not gonna over describe it. Like you like it or not, you know. So I like the idea of like having it to where other people can say, hey, I like this, or and if they say they don't like it, you just don't care because it's not, you know, hey, somebody will like it, you know. So
Yeah, can't please
really,
everybody.
yeah, right. Everybody like go to oberonrose.com, and if you don't like it, just don't even mention that you even listen to it. You know. No, seriously, check it out. It's awesome. It's great to have you on. You know, it's almost we're in the lineup, so we'll definitely have you on again. I would love to do the Badfinger episode, have that planned, and hopefully have Tyler on too of the Jebb and Greencast, have the green part of it. We can meet Tyler too and just talk music all day, man. That's what I do.
Sounds good.
That's why I wanted to be. That's why I wanted to do this podcast, because radio is tough to get into. Podcast you could just do right at your house, DIY all the way. And this is a perfect episode for DIY. I'm gonna mention you to another host because I like to shout out other podcasts that I've been recently listening to as well. Lige Shaw does home recording studio rockstars. There we go. And I'm in his group. He just recently invited me to share my stuff as well. And I'm gonna mention him to him and see if he can get you on there, because you do everything DIY and in your own studio. I feel that you fit his show, as that's what he does. And I'll mention to him, like, I just had this guest on who does everything DIY recording. Please check him out and see what might give you an avenue there. That'd be awesome. You know, no promises on there, but I'll definitely share it along. So shout out to Lige Shaw, one of the coolest radio hosts that I like to listen to on my iPhone when going into school. So, and hopefully these podcasts will be on iTunes too, so you guys can do that as well. Thank you, Tommy. If you have any last remarks, after this we'll go right into the song that we described earlier, which is Drawn and Quartered. So if you have anything left, we'll segue right after you say anything, and there we go.
Well, no, I just thanks for having me on.
No problem, man. No problem.
I appreciate it. And you know, we're in the middle of working on our next record, so that should be out.
Oh, cool. If you wanted to go into that for a little bit, we got time. No worries. If you wanted a little bit, we could segue after that. No worries.
Yeah, it's just it's still a work in progress.
Perfect.
We're about I think I have about 6 songs completed. I mean, they need to be mixed, but recording wise.
No, it's good that you're in the spirit and keep going though. It's awesome. Keep it coming.
So we have probably 3 or 4 more to do.
As a fan, don't just make 3 albums and then disappear like The Shore or many other bands from that time period. The 2000s, you know, indie pop scene. You have like bands like the Waxwings, The Shore, and if you haven't heard those, I'll send you their way. Check them out. They just have 3 albums and they disappear. I mean, they go working with other people. I mean, the guy from the Waxwings became one of the coolest guys in Queens of the Stone Age, so he's the keyboardist in Queens. And also, I think he plays in Jack White's band too. But again,
sometimes that's all a band. That's the life. That's the
like
lifespan of a band.
And then they just go to work with other people, and then they become session musicians, which there's nothing wrong with that. I love it. And I like under my name, I like having a bunch of names under my name too. So
the biggest travesty, would be Jellyfish. You know.
Okay. We have Eric Dover coming up, so this will be perfect to talk Jellyfish.
That's
too.
Great.
Yeah, I'm John Soda James, the one I mentioned before, actually runs a Jellyfish fan page. So I'm friends with Chris Manning on Facebook, Roger Joseph. I'm actually friends with Chloe, who is Andy's daughter, and she's really cool. But it's really cool to just have a connection like that. And they were the first people I started talking to. Chris Manning is one of the nicest, and so is Roger. And then I met people through them, and then I met this guy Eric Barrio, I think is Bareo. I hope I said your name right. I was just talking to you today. And he's a big power pop guy too. And through him, he actually worked with Roger Manning on one of his Roger Manning Joseph. Worked on one of his albums with him, was a guest, and it's real good. I'll send that your way too. But it's just really cool to have these like guys, like again for me with Ken and John, to give, like, we went to go see Toad the Wet Sprocket because John was there, and we got comp tickets, and my parents and I got to go backstage and meet Glenn. And Toad is one of my biggest favorites. So I was like, this was a huge honor, all because of a podcast. And I think that's incredible. Like, I'm not out there. Like, I read something that someone posted about reviewers asking for review copies. And they're like, I listened to your music and I really like it. Can I have you on my show? I need a physical copy. Like, I would never ask that. Like, that's something you don't ask. Like, I would, if anything, like, I would come to your show, buy the album, and then be like, hey, if you can sign it. If not, no worries. Like, I'm on here to just talk, and it's just cool to see, like, what I'm doing, I think, is making a difference in a small way for artists, too. So, I don't know.
Well, anything that can inspire more interest in, back into rock music is a good thing. So
Yeah, and another thing with Jellyfish is like Jason Faulkner and Roger leaving for Beck, and then Roger becoming
Yeah.
the manager, or I should say was he the producer of Beck, and then Jason was in Beck. And Jason's Faulkner solo albums are incredible. I don't know if you've heard any of them.
Oh, I agree.
Oh, they're so good. And it's like just Jellyfish, but then Andy now I think is just doing Cartoon Network stuff. If I'm not mistaken, he's doing a lot of the Cartoon Network shows
It all
under like a
hinges
different
on
name.
Andy, man. It all hinges
Yeah,
on Andy.
it's all him. And but you know what? No pressure. I you know, like we love you no matter what, Andy, if you hear this. Incredible band. I was just actually listening to Live at Bogart's. Love that version, the album, them being raw rock, where they're like, actually, they're so different live. They're like incredible. Like, you go, and again, in the studio albums like Spilt Milk, and John Bryan, which you know from Dean and Shelley's Wedding, worked on Spilt Milk, right?
Yeah.
So that's incredible. Just to be, I didn't know that. I left the venue. I'm sitting in the car, and I said, I'm looking up this guy because my dad and I are both. I was like, Dad, I'm like, we're already leaving, but like, he worked on Jellyfish's Spilt Milk. He was the guitar. I'm like, oh my god, I got to see him play live. And then Frankie from the new posters, the new drummer for the Posies. You'll notice I get excited. The new drummer for the Posies was telling my parents and I when we were hanging out at the Toad show that he was like, oh, he looked at me and he goes, oh, you met John Bryan, huh? Kind of jealous because he has a show in LA that we're trying to get on and stuff like that. I said, I'm going to be honest with you, and don't tell Ken, but like I didn't get a chance to talk to him. Kind of, there's so many people there. You remember? It was like there was just so many, and then nobody knew each other. Like kind of, but I thought it was cool because I know Michael Spike Records Priggin there. He was there, which was Dean's old bandmate from the Excerpts too. And I know he was there because I was talking. He's going to be up on the show too, talking about his record store and stuff like that. And I was just interested in the Excerpts because Dean's band is really cool from like I think late '80s. They had a really good sound.
I've yet to hear it.
I will send it your way as well. I'll share music with you if you don't mind. I love the music. To me is a conversational piece, and it should be. And it's cool to have like connections, and you know, hey, down the road, you know, we might be able to talk to you about maybe opening for you guys. I don't know. It's just cool, the connections and stuff, and so yeah, if you have a chance, I'm just gonna shout this out while we have a chance. If you don't, on November 30th, if you're in the Connecticut or New York area, I'm opening for a band called Hanover with the band Saint Riot Duo, and Tommy, if you're there, you know, you might be able to meet Tommy too. So hopefully we'll flood the place now with just using your name. You know, they're not playing, but you know, still show up. No, that's awesome. Thank you for your time so much. And so now we'll truly segue.